I've had the chance to get to know today's speaker over the past several months, and I can tell you that she is the real deal. Neysa Fligor was sworn in this past January as the 23rd Santa Clara County Assessor, but she is no stranger to the office. She worked her way up through it, first as a special assistant, then as an assistant assessor, modernizing its technology and helping shape its budget along the way. Before that, she was the attorney defending property values at County Council. She's also former mayor of Los Altos, a Georgetown-trained lawyer and someone who generally loves public service, and it shows. Bad Ken Johnson impression, of course. So whether you own a home, rent a home, run a business, or just want to understand how your property gets assessed and what a county assessor really does, I know that you're going to find her remarks useful and refreshing. Please welcome Neysa Fligor.
Thank you, Dan. Good afternoon, everyone. As Dan said, I'm your new County Assessor, Neysa Fligor, and I'm so honored to be here in Campbell and with the Chamber of Commerce. And as Dan mentioned, he and I met formally several months ago, and it's been a privilege getting to know him. No surprise, every time I see him, he makes me laugh. And he just has that welcoming presence, and he was very persistent in working with our office to make sure that the chamber in Campbell was one of the first chambers of commerce that I presented. So thank you, Dan, for inviting me. Thanks for your persistence. Thanks for all you do in Santa Clara County. Thank you. So along with me, and Dan pointed her out, I do want to introduce Lori Lamley, who is on my executive, she's my confidential secretary, which means she's on the assessor's executive management team. And so I would not be able to be here or do the things that I do in the office on behalf of residents and constituents without Lori's help. So I do want to recognize and thank Lori. As Dan mentioned, I am former Los Altos mayor. I was on the city council for 7 years. And so when I look around the room and I heard the introductions that Dan made, I feel right at home because as he mentioned, we have Dan here, who's your mayor. I know Terry Hines, council member here in Campbell. Susan Landry, before she retired, she was also on your council. And then Brian, of course, who's the city manager. And I hope I didn't miss anyone. But these are folks that I have worked with directly over the past several years as a colleague on the Los Altos City Council. And so I know and appreciate the work they do on your behalf as Campbell residents and businesses. And so I also want to recognize and thank them. A matter of fact, before I came here, I was at a funeral this morning in Los Altos for former Los Altos Mayor Marge Bruno. I don't know if any of you are familiar with her. And it was well attended and the tributes were really touching because they focused on how much she had done for the community that a lot of us who had known her for years didn't even realize. And so even if, elected officials, non-elected officials, we know how much you do for the community. Sometimes it's not as visible to residents and the clients you serve, but just know you are making a difference and it's very much appreciated. So thank you. Now, speaking at chamber events aligns well with one of my day one initiatives. And if you remember my campaign last year, my slogan was ready on day one. And one of my initiatives after I was sworn in on January 26th was to increase community engagement. And the theme I have is public service through partnerships. And these partnerships are with all sectors, community groups, from small businesses, commercial developers, residential property owners, real estate professionals, and government entities. And simply put, we all understand that together we make Santa Clara County work. Government needs, and I think someone mentioned this earlier as well, government needs the non-government sectors to do well in order to drive the tax revenue. And the non-government sectors benefit from government having the revenue to provide the services needed from public safety to healthcare, ensuring we continue to have a safe, healthy, livable, and attractive Santa Clara County. As your new assessor, as part of my community engagement initiative, my goal is to make sure that you have the information you need to help you, your families, and your clients make informed decisions. And let me step back, as Dan mentioned, I will be touching on what exactly does the assessor do. That's one thing I learned last year. You would be surprised, or maybe not. During the campaign last year, how many people would walk up to me? And these are engaged, well-informed, educated, like everybody coming up to me saying, you know, what exactly do you do as assessor? Because of course, Larry Stone had been our assessor for 30 years. On cue, thank you. So let me start with an overview of the assessor's office. So by law, we identify and assess all taxable properties in Santa Clara County. And one of the parts of my bio that Dan didn't mention, before I came back to be part of the executive management team in the assessor's office, I was also the attorney for the assessor's office. So I'm very familiar with the laws that govern the work we do. So our primary role under the law is to identify and assess all taxable properties in Santa Clara County. So not all properties are assessed, only if under California law they're deemed taxable. And we are required to do fair and accurate assessments. Our job is not to influence whether or not more revenue or less revenue is generated. Our job, again, is to do fair and accurate assessments. And just if you're curious, properties in California, because every state is different, but the taxable properties in California are residential, commercial, business, personal property, mobile homes, aircrafts, and they're, yes, I know, boats. And one of the things Lori and I like to emphasize when we do these community engagement events is we are not the tax collector. There are other counties in California where they're combined. In Santa Clara County, I am only your assessor. I am not the tax collector, so I do not issue the tax bill. I do not collect your taxes. We do the assessment that leads to the property tax bill, but we're not the ones who issue and collect the taxes. The assessor also does not report to the Board of Supervisors. I'm an independently elected official serving Santa Clara County, and there are 58 of us in California because each county, there are 58 counties, each county has their independently elected county assessor. The state body that provides the oversight for the work we do in the assessor's office is the Board of Equalization, BOE or SBE, and they provide the oversight for all 58 assessor offices. And in addition to that oversight role, they also audit the assessor's offices every 4 years. So we're not just out on an island doing whatever we want to do. We get audited to make sure that we're applying the right formulas and the methodology required, and also applying the right laws. And I will tell you, the last audit that was done for Santa Clara County, the accuracy rate was 99.41%. I cannot take credit, right? It wasn't perfect. And when you see Larry Stone, make sure to say that, because I can't take credit. So the last audit was obviously done when Larry was our assessor, but I'll tell you, I still have the same staff in the office and the same experts and expertise, and so I'm confident we'll continue to do great, accurate work in the assessor's office. Another role we play, and this is not legally mandated, but it comes with the job, we do have a small legislative function where we advocate to improve processes to better serve residents. And we also push back when Sacramento tries to introduce a bill, and there are many that we work on, as Lori knows, every year. You know, one that may resonate relates to the fires in Southern California last year. You know, if you are a victim of a disaster here in California, there are disaster relief programs available in the assessor's office to help you through that process. But like any process, there are deadlines and there are forms and information you need to provide within a certain amount of time. And so the assessors group, the California Assessors Association, worked together to amend the current law last year to give those disaster victims more time to get this paperwork done, because we know first priority for them after those horrific fires was not filling out paperwork and meeting a deadline. And so that was one of the successes of the California Assessors Association last year, and that's the type of work we do in Sacramento. We also close the roll June 30th, and we're 2 weeks out, so every year we're on the same cycle. We do the same assessment work every year, starts July 1st through June 30th. We close the roll June 30th, and the roll we close on June 30th, so in 2 weeks, June 30th, 2026. That work is for calendar year 2025. And so that's the roll we're closing, because the lien date is January 1st, 2026. And so it's everything, your assessed value for that year. And I do not have breaking news, because one of the things you will not have an assessor do is project and predict what the roll close will be, what the roll growth will be, because we're doing it based on what the numbers are. We're very close. I have seen a glimpse. I have gotten a glimpse of what the numbers will be this year. And for those who are with the city or schools who follow this as closely as we do, I can give you a little peek to let you know it's going to be very similar to the numbers we saw last year. It won't be worse than last year's roll growth. Last year's roll growth, if you're curious, was $725 billion. And again, this is the assessed value. So all those different types of properties I identified, the assessed value of these properties last year was $725 billion. And how the tax roll works is, under the law, a 1% general levy gets applied to the $725 billion. And so the revenue that's actually generated from this big assessed value number is about $8 billion. And that's the revenue that gets distributed to all the recipient entities. Now, Santa Clara County has the largest roll, $726 billion, no surprise, we're Silicon Valley, in the Bay Area. And we're number 4 in the state. And I like to say, if you're as competitive as I am, you want to know the other 3 counties. They are LA, Orange County, and San Diego. They do have larger rolls than we do. But we're up there. We're number 4 of 58. So far, as I said, the numbers are coming in. We'll have more news to announce. We'll do the normal press release and share the information with the recipient jurisdictions. So the property assessment we do in the assessor's office forms the basis for these property tax bills. And then the revenue, when the tax collector applies the 1%, this $8 billion, and this is only property taxes. I know we all get taxed for other things. From the property tax revenue bucket, the $8 billion, 14% goes to cities, 18% to the county of Santa Clara, 7% to community colleges, 44% to K through 12 public schools, 6% to special districts, and 11% to the redevelopment agencies. And yes, they're no longer with us, but there's still debt and work that the funding needs to be available for. And these funds that these recipient jurisdictions receive make up a significant portion of their general fund dollars, as the council members will tell you. In the county alone, the revenue dollars they receive from property taxes make up 38% of their general fund dollars. And what's great about the general fund dollars, they're discretionary. They can use them to fill gaps. They can use them they can spend it on healthcare, public safety, wherever the need is. That's how they can use these dollars. And so it's a significant portion of the general fund dollars of these recipient jurisdictions. Now, the work we do in the assessor's office also gives us a bird's eye view into what's happening in the Santa Clara County real estate market. It provides valuable data on what's happening in the county, where we know where growth is happening, we know where it's not happening, we know where development is happening, we know what industries are doing well, data centers, and which ones aren't, and we know where residential markets are strong. And we monitor this on a daily basis by watching what happens, for example, with vacancies, new construction, sales, and other factors. And of course, the joke in the assessor's office is if we could predict or project property values, 1, we would not be working in the assessor's office, and 2, our job would be a lot easier. And so quickly, the factors that affect roll growth. So remember, and last year's roll growth was 4.15%, right? It's year over year. The factors that affect roll growth, reductions, what causes our roll growth to go down, exemptions under the law, certain types of properties or uses are exempt. So for example, religious institutions, public entities, their properties are exempt and most of the uses, so for example, affordable housing. Prop 8 reductions, by law, and it goes back to what I said earlier, that our job is not to increase or decrease revenue. Our job is to apply the law. And one of the laws is Prop 8. And Prop 8 requires the assessor's office, if a property declines in value, we are required to reassess your property and lower the value. What causes an increase in the roll growth? Change or transfer in ownership. When you sell your property, new construction, all this new construction you may see in Campbell, that increases the roll growth. That adds to the value. And then, of course, Prop 13. And I'm not here to say whether or not you should love or hate Prop 13. It's been with us since the 70s. And as you know, this caps the annual adjustment up to 2%. And so once you purchase the property, your increase cannot go above this 2%, and it's tied to the California CPI. But it cannot exceed that annual cap of 2%. I asked our real estate or real property division chief a few weeks ago, what would we need to see? Because over the last several years, there hasn't really been a big jump in the growth, right? It's pretty been steady in that 4 to 6% range. And he said to really see a boom in roll growth, you need to see a boom in the residential market, because that's, especially in Santa Clara County, that's what would really cause a big increase. Now, of course, when you get and it's almost June 30th, I mentioned to someone before that we call these love notes, because when we get our work done June 30th, our office, which is only one of 11 counties in California that does this because it's not mandatory, it's not legally required, we issue this NAV card, this notification of assessed value. We send this out after June 30th, telling each property owner what the assessed value is. You will then have an opportunity to contact our office, and this is a free informal review process that we offer. Again, only one of 11 counties in California offers this, where you're able to contact our office to say, I got my NAV card, or your love note, just kidding, and this assessed value just doesn't seem right. And we invite you to either set up a phone call or come and meet us in person, because I'll be honest, if you provide documentation or information that we did not have as part of our assessment, and it requires us to reduce your assessed value, that is something we will do immediately and readily, because that's our job. And so look out for these NAV cards. Make sure your clients look out for these NAV cards, because we do want you to take advantage of this free informal review process. One of my other day one initiatives was to extend the time period for taxpayers to actually engage with our office for this free informal review process. And there are many reasons why I extended the time. One, I think it was the right thing to do, and we had the capacity to do it. The second reason, and it's very timely, the County of Santa Clara, not the assessor's office, the County of Santa Clara a few months ago decided to start charging an appeals fee. So if you are a taxpayer and you get your assessed value and you disagree with your assessed value, and you do the free informal review with our office and we still don't have a meeting of the minds, it happens, right? You still have a right until September 15th to file an appeal. But now, because of the action taken by the Board of Supervisors, if you're a taxpayer with a property, with a residential property, a multifamily building with 4 units or less, ag land, open space, and you want to appeal the assessed value, you will now have to pay $295 per application. For all the other categories of properties, you will have to pay $675 for that appeal, and it's non-refundable. And so again, I encourage you, if there's no other takeaway from today's presentation, the NAV cards go out June 30th. We're going to the post office June 30th. It's a thing we do. Mail those NAV cards. Please look at them closely. We do have an accuracy rate of 99%, but we want to make sure we're getting those right. Let me jump ahead. I know Dan and Laura will start looking at me and saying time's going. If you're wondering, so in our office, when I was running for office last year, as a former council member, when you run for office, either for the Board of Supervisors or for council, one of the common questions asked is, what's your position on housing? What's your position on climate? What's your position on transportation? Because you're policymakers, right, for your local jurisdiction and sometimes for the region. The assessor's role, even though it's elected, is a lot different. It's a job where we have to make sure this work gets done. And so when people ask me about the priorities in our office, our number one priority is to make sure we close the role by June 30th. That's our legal mandate. We have to do that. So that's our number one priority. Our second priority is to make sure we resolve these appeals. Currently, we have, and I'm looking at the number, 13,000 active appeals. For residential, 3,000, close to 4,000. For non-residential, close to 10,000. These are the number of appeals our staff working with county council have to work on and try to get resolved, because the statute of limitations is 2 years. So we have to close the roll, we have to resolve these appeals. And then the third priority in our office is we're now implementing a new technology solution, Project Prism. We had been on COBOL for over 40 years. Just think about this, a $726 billion role where we're assessing high-valued property, very technical work, and we've been doing it on a 40-plus-year-old COBOL system. It required a lot of manual work, a lot of supplemental tools, and amazing staff in the office to really get the work done and get it done right every year. But it was time. We said, right now we have no choice. We needed to move forward, and so we started the process last year, and the hope and plan, and we're on schedule, is to go live next year with this new system. But it means that's the third priority in our office. Same number of employees working on these three priorities, all of which need to be done, all of which need to be done now. And so when you hear 13,000 active appeals, that's a lot. It has gone up over the years. I'm going to jump back to the top 5 cities, since I know we have our Campbell folks in the room with the strongest role growth. And as I mentioned, residential property is the largest contributor to role growth in Santa Clara County. So when you hear the 5 cities, and this is from last year, again, I will not disclose yet which are the top 5 cities for this coming year, but 2025 role close, which was for the year 2024, the top 5 cities were Morgan Hill, Santa Clara, Saratoga, Los Altos, and Montecito. Campbell was number 8. And we have 15 cities in Santa Clara County plus the county. So we're assessing property in 16 different jurisdictions, and Campbell was number 8. And specific to Campbell, we're really seeing a residential market boom. That's what's driving up your role growth. Last year, it was a little bit more than 5%, which is right in the middle, because those other cities I mentioned are like 6.38, and then you have others. Mountain View is at the bottom last year, which was very surprising. Another day one initiative I do want to share relates to the low value ordinance, which I thought the Chamber of Commerce would appreciate. Currently under state law, a jurisdiction is, and this is where the Board of Supervisor comes in, so I may be reaching out to Dan in a couple months. The assessor can ask the Board of Supervisors to adopt what's called a low value ordinance, essentially saying, if it's going to cost the assessor's office more time, resources, and money to conduct an assessment than the revenue that will be generated, then it should be exempt. The law allows us to do this. The law used to be up to $15,000, 1-5. Last year, they increased it in Sacramento to $50,000. The current low-value ordinance in Santa Clara County that we got the board to adopt in 2016 is for $10,000. We're now working, because you have to do an analysis and present to the board showing the time we spend and the employees and the FTEs. We have to do this whole assessment, present it to the board to justify why we think we should increase the low-value ordinance from $10,000. And we think we'll end up between 15 and we can justify between 15 and 20,000. And why that's important to the chamber: small businesses, parklets. These are the types of properties that would fall within this value. And so stay tuned. With tariffs and everything going up, we think we have more than enough justification to increase it above 10. We don't think we'll get to 50,000. Matter of fact, I think LA was able to get to 15,000 recently. So Stay tuned, Dan and Chamber of Commerce. We'll look for your support when we have that going to the Board of Supervisors. One of the things, Autumn, who's our deputy assessor, likes to say is folks don't think of the assessor's office until a life event happens. And then unfortunately, some people will say, wait a minute, what do I need to do with the assessor's office? So again, we want to make sure you're armed with information in advance so you can better prepare and your clients can better prepare. So here are some things, if they're happening in your life, you should think of the assessor's office if you're building an ADU or if you have a client building an ADU. If you want to find out whether or not you qualify for a property tax exemption, if you're thinking about a remodel and whether or not it will be deemed new construction and therefore trigger a reassessment, those are things you can reach out to our office in advance and have a discussion. If you're planning, just like what the open space just did on June 2nd, to have a bond measure, you can definitely reach out to our office to talk it through, especially if it's going to involve square footage or you want to do some kind of exemption. Emergency preparedness, relief programs if there's a disaster, if you're moving to another property in California, if you're getting a divorce, if you lost a loved one, all these life events touch the assessor's office. We're involved, and so please think of us and reach out to us sooner rather than later. We're here to help with process questions, timing questions, and we don't give advice. I think we have a disclaimer coming up, or maybe Lori already shared it. We don't give advice, but we're here to give factual information, and everyone who has come through our office, who has sat with us and we've talked them through these types of processes and provided the information, have found it helpful. So please spread the word. We encourage you to go to our website. Our annual report comes out in the fall. It also has very helpful information as you do your businesses, whether it's Farmers Insurance or any of the other business entities, the law firms here. All this information I know will be very helpful in the work you do. The experts in our office are here to help. And to us, it's a win-win for everyone. And the last thing I will say before I open it up to questions is we in the assessor's office, we answer the phone. And we have our own internal policy of, for whatever reason we don't answer the phone, we're committed to getting back to any phone calls or emails within 24 hours. So please hold us to that. Thank you again so much for having me, and I think we have a few minutes for questions. You're shutting me down.
No, I am not shutting
Neysa.
Neysa, thank you very, very much.
No, thank you, Dan. Thanks for having me. Thank you. Happy to be here.